This is Dr. Weideman, and I'm going to show you how to use StatCrunch to compare groups, the material that we're covering in Chapter 4 in our class. I'm going to use the student data file that you have access to if you register for my student group in StatCrunch. And let's start out first by, let's make a histogram of some data that we've got in here. Let's take a look at maybe, I think songs would be interesting. And I'm going to do relative frequency because that's a little bit easier for me to look at. So let's take a look at that histogram. Well, that's certainly an interesting histogram. We certainly see probably some outliers here. Let's go ahead and remember in Chapter 3 we learned about a graphical display that would help us identify outliers. So I'm going to go ahead and select songs again. And I'm going to make sure that I use the fences to identify the outliers. And I'm going to hit compute. And I have quite a few outliers. In fact, if you notice, these outliers are really overwhelming the rest of the graph. And one option I can do here is to try to identify, for instance, who this student is. I can use my mouse. I use my mouse, drag it across, and highlight it in pink. And if I go back to the data file, I can scroll down and find out who that belongs to. I'm trying to get my window over here so I can see that option to scroll down and take a look at, there we go, and take a look at who that student is. Let's keep going down, 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 down. Let's see, we're not going down, are we? But you should be able to scroll down and see who that particular student is. There it is. Okay, so that's a student that was on campus. Let's see anything interesting about that student. Student was a male, born in Columbia. Anyway, that's a nice feature. But since we've got these outliers here, I wonder, in terms of the songs on the player, I wonder if there's any difference between males and females. So I'm going to go ahead and go back actually on the options here. And let's go ahead and edit this. And let's go ahead and group by gender. So now we're going to get, and go all the way down to the bottom also and select same X and Y axis. So you get the two box plots side by side. Okay, so now here we can see how the distribution of outliers is. There are outliers in both the males and the females, and that's kind of a nice thing to be able to see when we compare groups. Let's go back and select another variable to look at. And if you want to get rid of that pink, just click up here on the row. Let's go ahead and graph, start with a histogram again. Let's do height. And I'm just going to do it overall right now. And again, I like to use relative frequency. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here's what it looks like. Pretty interesting. Another nice tool here in the StatCrunch program, if you click on a bar here, it'll highlight in the raw data set who's included in this group here. So if I wanted to see that one, click up here again to get rid of the pink. If I wanted to see who the tallest people were, click over there. Now let's go ahead and do the box plot, because we really like the box plot because it helps us to see differences. So again, let's do overall first and use fences to identify outliers. And when we put the males and females all together, we don't see any outliers. Let's go over and edit this, and let's now group by gender and see if we see anything different. We do have one outlier. So again, if I use my mouse, I can click and I can see that that student is here. And I'm going to try to scroll down again and see, oh, went too fast. I went over too far, rather. That's what I did. I went over too far in the data set. But you can scroll down and find out who that student is. I think that pretty much covers the things that we go through in Chapter 5. And I can't think of anything else that we might want to do. If we wanted to do multiple groups, let's take a look at a box plot. Let's do, oh, I don't know, shoe size, and let's group it by eye color. Not quite sure why you would want to do that, and let's use fences to identify. So we're now drilling down in the data a little bit more. We see in a couple of the groups here, there's only one observation, so we really don't see very much. Let's click up here to get rid of those pinks. We see in the brown, we have outliers on the top and the bottom. We also see, interestingly enough, we only have one student with gray. Looks like the gray was spelt differently, so they actually could be grouped together. This is another way to nicely compare the groups. So I hope this will help you as you try to go into StatCrunch and play with data, take a look at different ways to display the data, investigate the relationships within the data set.